Good morning YouTube, we are back for a change and the Lexus is as in the air as it can be. For a change we've actually got something to do to it. It's possibly one of the kind of most excited parts for the car I've been, and today I'm going to try and show you how to install it the easy way. It's probably harder, but if people don't have facilities, this can be easier. So from the guys over at, I'll put the thingy here, YDC shop, we've got their short shifter that's been designed specifically for the IS platform. So in the package you've got your limiter, kind of sound deadener, some washers, some bolts. This is the, we'll call it the cage that replaces the OEM one. The OEM has the kind of same design. Once we get under the car, I'll show you. And then this is the pièce de résistance, the part that I didn't have to go so extra with, but it will all make sense. The shifter, and yes, it's polished. Yes, I'm going to touch it with dirty hands and probably absolutely fingerprint the life out it, but a man sees shiny things, a man likes shiny things. So yeah, we've got it polished. It will tie in real nice with chrome handles and clear tail lights. And we do have wheels. Not sure if I'm going to spoil the wheel situation just yet, as my faces are currently away being machined, but well, there's the lips and barrels and tyres. So yes, we have progress. The Lexus it was for sale. I had someone coming to get it, and I basically I was that guy. I told them I wasn't doing it. So what we're going to do in today's video is I'm going to try and show you how to, it might be a bit different getting your center console out to getting mine out, because mine doesn't have all the bolts and blah blah blah. But the general easiest way to fit this shifter is to take the gearbox out of the car and do everything that way. Me personally, I cannot be bothered taking the gearbox out of the car just to do a short shifter. If I'm taking the box out, it's because I'm doing a flywheel and a clutch, and right now I'm not there. So, and I'm too antsy. I want to get the shifter in because it looks like it feels great and makes cool noises, as much as that sounds a bit silly with just a short shifter. But that's today's plan. So we have the car on wheels at the back to give us a bit of height for clearance getting under. Don't worry, these aren't technically touching. We have axle stands under the chassis legs. That was just a probably really poorly placed last resort safety method. But when I'm under the car, I'll put the jack back under and stuff, so we're all good. And the jack stands underneath are solid on the chassis wheels. So first what we're going to do is we're going to go inside the car and get the centre console out of the way, get all the kind of trims out of the way, which might be a bit difficult because the bucket seats are a bit intrusive, but we'll figure it out. So as I said, lucky for me, possibly unlucky for me, I don't have all the bolts in here, so it may potentially be slightly easier. So what you've got usually is there's a bolt down there and down there. I've obviously not fitted them because the bucket seats are in the way of the holes, so thanks to past me for that. First up, we'll unscrew shift knob. Generally easy. If it's stock one, it might be a bit tight, so you might, don't worry, it is on threads, so if it feels a bit like it doesn't want to move, just use your muscles, you'll be fine. If I can do it, anybody can do it. But one shift knob, and then I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember if there should be screws in these from the factory. Don't take my word for it, but then that just unclips, pulls out. Now you probably could do this with just that off, but for what it takes to take the centre console out, you're probably better off just giving yourself the extra space. Handbrake gaiter, same again, it will be kind of clipped in around the console and then just pull it, lift it out, jamming. And then in your armrest there will be 2 screws at the back. So if I can try, it's really hard to look through a camera and line up. Get the screws out. One, and as you can tell with them being different colours, this is definitely where I started to run out of screws in the whole interior process. And then that will just lift up. So your next point, that's kind of clipped in to the dash, so you just need to kind of separate that and then lift everything up. I told the Porcupine, there's 2 screws in there. Definitely take them out before you start yanking at your dashboard. So now that the centre console's out of the way, you've got 4 10mm bolts holding the, I don't know what you call this, tunnel cover maybe? Who knows? Take the 10mm out, pull that off. So once you get, obviously don't forget the handbrake loom is on the side of this, but once you get the 4 bolts out and the loom off, pull that out, then there's a gasket, and that actually exposes the start of the cage. Now what you'll see is there's absolutely no space in front of that, but if we look at the new cage, the 4 bolt holes that you'll see on the top where the actual shifter is more or less where these 4 bolt holes are, which leaves these ones. So what a lot of people are saying to do, and by a lot of people I mean 2 people that I've seen talking about it, in order to get to the top bolts, and it's exactly what I was planning to do, drop the, don't physically drop it, put a jack under it, put a jack under the gearbox, loosen off the gearbox mount, and then lower the jack down. And what that should effectively do is drop the back end of the gearbox just enough that you'll be able to get up to the top 2 bolts with a ratchet spanner. So then hopefully, and I say hopefully, we'll be able to separate the shifter from the cage. I'm not sure if it will, but if we can get all that done, that means shifter should be able to be fitted in situ, which is going to be so much better. So after some investigation, lifting up this rubber boot exposes 4 10mm or star-headed screws. Undo them and you can just pull the shifter out, which means the cage will definitely drop down underneath. So with everything loosened and removed down there, we now need to get underneath and have a look. So now that we're underneath the car, I don't know how well you'll be able to make this out because my glasses are fogging up. You'll see right here, that's one of your side mounts for the shifter cage, and the front 2 are going to be like all the way over here. So the hole for the tunnel's there, they're all the way there. So the best option is going to be to undo these 4 bolts that hold the gearbox mount with the jack on the gearbox mount, and then lower it down just enough that you can get up there with a ratchet spanner, find the bolts and send it. So got the gearbox dropped, and then we've got so far the side bolts out of the cage. Now if you were paying attention and you heard me saying 10mm bolts for the cage, don't listen to me because they're 12s. So if you have listened to me and you're now under the car trying to get them off, you're going to hate me because they're 12mm, not 10s. However, don't hate me too much because just as hoped, you can now see we have access to the bolts up the top of the cage. It's going to be really awkward. You're going to need to try and get in with a spanner and try and leverage it, but again, it's better than taking the gearbox out. So I've got the top 2 bolts out. What I ended up having to do was a telescopic ratchet for the leverage with like a, it's not a deep and it's not a shallow, it's kind of somewhere in between, 12mm socket, and had to more or less wedge it in onto the bolt, use that to leverage it off. But now we can try and get the cage off. So we're at a bit of a hold just now. So as you can see, got the standard cage off. Once the bolts are out, I just pulled it back over the drive shaft and kind of turned it round so it kind of came down the way. But what you'll notice is the shifter cage for the new shifter is bigger. So basically there's 2 types of J160 boxes. One obviously has this bolting up a bit higher, one has it bolting up down lower. So the shifter has been made to work with both variations. The way you counter it is, so in here you obviously get your 4 washers that kind of space everything up. More or less, if you've got the type that the cage is already down here, I think you put all the washers in. If you don't, you leave the washers out the top, bring it down, and there's 2 holes on the side of the casting. I'll actually see if I can show you that just now. So you'll see there's other holes down here. So what you need to do is get an M8 by 125 tap and cut the threads into the box, and then leave the washers out the top holes, and it should all line up. So my current issue would be is that I don't have a tap the right thread, and neither does anybody else in the yard. So next step is finding one of them, and then we can sort the holes out and start to assemble the new shifter. So we finally have some progress. I found a tap and die set, but could not get the tension for putting the M8 through it with what kind of room you have leaving the box in. So down the line, gearbox comes out, I'll re-tap them. For now though, I have got an M6 thread in, with a couple of M6 bolts and some bigger washers. Obviously this is not going to be as strong as the M8s, but for a temporary measure just to get me in and going just now, it'll do. So bottom bolts are in, can't really see them. The top bolts supplied with the kit are in. Now remember, if you need to tap those holes, then you leave the washers out from underneath the cage up here. So now that they're in, we can get the box back up, and then we can start actually working with the good bit. So now that we've got all the gearbox bolted back up, we can get back to the fun stuff. Sneak peek for another video coming soon as well. Got an IRP hydro. But it is time for the shifter. So on the base you have 3 hole options. So more or less, the further down the holes you go, the shorter the throw is going to be. I'm probably going to start off trying the middle, because it's the middle ground. If you put it there and it's too short, come back up one. If you put it in and it's no enough, go down one, rather than going straight in and it's no enough or it's too short or whatever. So what we'll do is strip all this off, pop everything into the middle hole. It's going to be fairly straightforward. Just need to unbolt the actual shifter from this point, and then we will be unbolting this and this. So these 2, move them down a notch, bolt them back up, bolt the shifter back in, and then we can get to assembling it on the inside. So shifter's already set out to the middle holes now. Now we come in and you've got these. So these are like restrictor plates as such. They're basically meant to stop you overthrowing the gearbox. Haven't quite worked out what point of adjustment they're going to as of yet, but that's once everything's kind of ready to bolt in kind of thing. So more or less, once they're on, all you've got to do is take your shifter, probably make sure that the bush is straight or it's going to have a hard time getting in. And once you line it up, you can still kind of see the bush. What I find usually helps with this kind of thing is getting a screwdriver and just kind of not prying it. Don't damage the bush, but just use it to guide the bush into the right position. And once you've guided the bush into the right position, you are in. You are sorted. So obviously it's not bolted down, but for a rough idea, that's much shorter. Oh. So let's get these bolted in, figure out where all the restrictors need to be, and I'll update you then. So got those 4 bolts tightened up, and more or less done. The centre setting, I would personally say, is quite nice. Please excuse my sticky sleeve, but yeah, it's nice. Obviously I got the polished one and it's already showing some marks from me messing around putting it in. I got grease on the glove and that kind of, the glove ended up being my undoing, but we got that cleaned up with some window cleaner. The good thing is this is the V2, so if you want to run the polished but you don't want a polished knob, not everyone likes getting their knobs polished, you can take that off and rethread a different gear knob on. I'm not sure what the thread pitch of my Vertex is. That's not deep enough, but that is just a stud. So if you've got a knob like a Vertex one, you can probably just put a longer stud on it and you would be able to just do that. Or you can get various other gear knobs in the right thingy, but I'm quite happy with the polished one, to be fair. All you need is a bit of window cleaner and keep it nice. So there is still a kind of foam insert that you pop in as well, and then obviously you can just get the rest of the centre console back in. I'm not going to be putting mine back in this video because I do still, I've actually just kind of made a modification to the dashboard while I was in here to clear up space for the hydro that you seen earlier. So as I said, that's pretty much the shifter install done. You can do it with the gearbox in the car, presumably with either version of the gearbox, whether you need to tap the holes or not. You might have a better tap and die that you can actually get the M8 bolts in. Because I know I'm going to be dropping the gearbox out of it soon anyway, I just didn't bother too much. So I've just got them in with M6s just now, as you've seen, and that'll get addressed at some other point. But yeah, so shifter's in, feels real good. Kind of honestly just makes me want to go and drive the car a bit more now, but there's a list of stuff to get done. So thanks for watching this video. I hope it's been somewhat helpful for anybody. I mean, bear in mind, I'm just a guy. So if I can install the shifter, if you've got the right tools, a bit of basic knowledge, you should be absolutely fine. But again, as I said, the best way to do it is with the gearbox out. But if you're like me and you're lazy, you don't want to be taking a gearbox out if you don't have to. So this is now proof that you don't actually have to. So next video will hopefully be the IRP hydro getting installed. Just need to get a couple of parts before we can actually put that in, and then after Christmas hopefully we will have some kind of update on the new wheels, and then once it's got the new wheels we're more or less ready to go. But I do still kind of want to pull the subframe out, powder coat the subframe, polybush it, blah 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 blah, you know, the usual. But I'll stop rambling. Thanks for watching the video. Keep an eye out for some more. Cheers.